only had Jesus had no problem calling Pharisees white-walled sepulchres and other things, but he was not targeting Herod. And John did. And John's like, I think if I put myself in trouble there, he's going to have to act. And then not only is he not even being talked about, Jesus is not coming to rescue him. He's not coming to burn Herod. And so John's like, I got questions. Okay, so where am I going with this? Well, we're going to this moment now. We have questions. Maybe a lot of you have questions. Maybe it's for a lot of you. It's like, okay, I signed up for him, but I've been through some twists and turns I did not expect. It didn't go according to the pattern that was drawn out. I thought I had prophetic words to say, oh, Gabriel visited and said a few things. Well, that was John's story. And it hasn't gone that way. And so, as it relates to Dennis, if you have questions on that, you're like, he's clearly a hero, a man of God. Why does he go through suffering? Why does he seem to be removed early? Doesn't seem to fit this plot. So here's a few things. I've heard some of this stuff already through different voices. Dennis began traveling, preaching with his dad by the age of 18, was ordained by 19. Means he preached, since he was preaching even last year, preached over 50 years. He moved to Peru in 1973 at age 20, not knowing a single word of Spanish. Within 1 year, he had forced himself to learn enough Spanish to begin preaching immediately. He's the fastest learner. We had scores of Americans come there. I was there the whole time. Nobody learned Spanish as quickly as Dennis. He fell in love with the Peruvian people. He was preaching all up and down the nation, the rivers, the Andes Mountains, along the desert coast. Over the years, a lot of this already came out, but for those who didn't know, Dennis pastored both Spanish and English churches in Las Vegas, raised up training centers in Peru and Las Vegas, resulting in a network of churches under his leadership. 31 churches in Peru, 7 churches in Brazil, 1 in Chile, 1 in Paraguay, 1 in Argentina, 1 in Japan, 1 in Hungary. Dennis preached and healed the sick, cast out demons in 33 nations of the world. He wrote 3 books, wrote training manuals that were translated into multiple languages. He ordained many into ministry and sent full-time missionaries to various countries in Africa and Europe. He purchased a large property in Peru, really with his desire to honor my father, Lenny's father, Jack Enlow. It's going to be called, he was known in Spanish as Ricardo Enlow, the Ricardo Enlow Training Center. He gifted it to a Peruvian church network under Edgar Iturri, who had been mentioned before, the apostle over Peru there. But they did their own upgrading of it, and they renamed it the Dennis Walker Mission Center, because he had established his legacy as well. And after many years of building, it is now fully functioning with dorms, meeting rooms, buildings where people come for training and conferences. Up until his last days on earth, Dennis had the smallest bucket list on the planet. Go to Peru and minister. It's like, he had literally no other bucket list of visiting on a tour and vacation and going somewhere and do it. It was a ridiculous bucket list because he would practically try to bribe, threaten, do whatever the family so he could he could get there. And so what am I saying by connecting those two stories? Well, I think over Dennis, we read these same verses, Matthew chapter 11. It's like you can either ask the questions and be stuck with them, or John was shortly, but Jesus said, Jesus told the disciples, said, go tell John what you've seen.
Amen.
The blind receive their sight. The lame walk. The lepers are cleansed. The deaf hear. The dead are raised up. And the poor have the gospel preached to them. And blessed is he who is not offended in me. Just last point on that, we'll be done. Blessed is he who is not offended in me. Offended at what? For John, there was a lot to be offended. The two stars, the brightest stars of the last 2,000 years. Because Jesus himself said there's no greater prophet than John the Baptist. I don't think John the Baptist knew that he was going to be checking out early. And Jesus, we know, was the brightest star. So you had the two brightest stars. John is thinking all his life while he's preparing to announce him. And then when he announces, he's coming. And he's coming with fire from heaven. He thought the lamb was coming as the lion. He's the lion, but he had to come as the lamb first to regain all the lost authority. Amen. He had to pay the price with his blood for everything that had to be paid. So these two great heroes were both taken in their 30s by the enemy. We act like the cross was like orchestrated by heaven, and it is in some way, but it was orchestrated by the enemy too. It's just death is swallowed up in victory when you serve the Lord.
Amen.
Come on.
And then John the Baptist, same way. Young man, he's thinking, yeah, I'm going to call down fire with him. We're going to go do some damage. We're going to start with the Pharisees. And it's like, John, you're done. So don't be offended that he went early. Dennis was an early bloomer for everything. He started ministry at 18 and 19. I didn't really till 35. He did everything. Dennis was probably never praised for balance.
That's right.
It's faith. It's, if there is, well, this would be a safe way we probably should do. This is the hard, but it's faith. We're going that. It's no-brainer. We're going that way. This was, he's going to take the hard route, not just because it's hard, but if it's faith, and of course he's going on direction from the Lord, that is what he would do. There's a practical thing. We face this when Jack Enlow, my father, passed away early as well, more than his last 10 years fighting sickness and illness as well. But there's just a reality when you give your life to the Lord and say, I'm going to do whatever you want. And if you are a hero and you do all these things that Dennis does, you're liable to be targeted a bunch by the enemy.
Yep.
And it's just sort of like, there's an awesome boxer, but he does this about 15 years, and they start like, it takes a toll. So it's okay, it just takes a toll. There's like, what's the punishment?